Welcome to another reading of Hot Flash Divas. Today I'm wearing my Galapagos t-shirt. If you ever get a chance to go, it's a wonderful place to visit. We're reading chapter 48 today, The Test. We all evaluate our dates for flaws, with specific attention focused on what went wrong in our previous relationships. I didn't want to make the same mistakes. After my experience with Kent and Nathan, I was a bit more cautious with Brent. Being a scientific-minded guy, Brent seemed to approach this evaluation process in a different fashion than I did. I allowed our dates to progress in a natural way, while I observed Brent and his behavior. I knew I had the ultimate test napping at my home, my four-legged child, Buffy. It made sense to me that with degrees in physics and electrical engineering, Brent preferred the scientific approach. That didn't mean I enjoyed being his current research subject. Once while we sat at a table waiting for our pizza at the Mellow Mushroom, he asked, "How do you place the forks, knives, and spoons in the dishwasher?" He tilted his head to the side as he waited for my answer. I couldn't believe he was asking me about my dishwasher practices at a time like this. Brent, what exactly are you asking? I could barely concentrate due to my growling stomach. The spicy smells of sauce, pepperoni, and cheese bombarded my senses. Face up or face down? He gestured up or down with the palm of his hand. I sighed. I placed all the utensils but sharp knives face up. I gulped some sweet tea, hoping that settled the issue. Good grief, it's just eating utensils. I placed everything face up so it's exposed to the spray and more thoroughly cleaned. Brent crossed his arms and raised his chin as if this were so doggone important. I agree. Face up is ideal. However, safety must be a primary concern. That's why I placed sharp, pointy objects down. I watched my friend Gina get stabbed by a knife that pointed up while she was trying to unload her mother's dishwasher. It's better to rewash a knife than make a trip to the emergency room. Drawing his brows together, Brent considered my answer. I imagined the wheels of logic turning in his brain. If his bouncing leg was any indication, his neurons were firing at lightning speed. The leg bouncing reminded me of Todd. You're right. That's the best way. I had a keen awareness of Brent's propensity for gathering data. I guess his scientific mind needed it. What did it matter to me? I had no plans to remarry. Let him gather his data. Brent finagled different approaches to try to see my home. I assumed he wanted to gauge my level of neatness and organization. The harder he pushed, the more I resisted. Before our third date, he smiled with childlike anticipation. I can pick you up at home. There's no need to drive into your office on a Saturday night. No problem for me to drive in. I can feed my turtle, Betty Joe. I grinned as I watched his shoulders slump. He experienced much initial angst since I blocked all efforts for him to complete this observation of my living environment. I suspected he feared I was hiding something. Brent finally passed my safety inspection, or maybe I felt he suffered enough. I invited him to my home for a Sunday lunch of roast beef cooked with potatoes and carrots, along with a salad. When Brent walked through the door, I watched to see how Buffy would greet him. She circled him with her tail twitching, executing her pet me routine. Dropping to one knee, Brent scratched whatever part came available. As Buffy pranced around him, I saw a delighted grin cross his face. Buffy could read people better than Freud. Bursting with intelligence and doggy wisdom, she sniffed Brent while he sweet-talked her. "Hi there, girl. My, aren't you pretty?" he crooned. Buffy was a beauty. Her fluffy fur was white with amber highlights, and her ears were so long she sometimes dipped them in her water bowl while drinking. Her bobtail twitched with excitement as Brent loved on her. I found it interesting that she fawned over Brent and met Nathan with raised hackles. "Her ears are soft like velvet." Brent stood and sniffed the air that was laden with the aroma of roast. "I don't know what you're cooking, but it smells fabulous." He craned his neck, looking around my home before he hugged me. "Your house is very nice." I gave him the grand tour, watching his every move. When he entered my bedroom, his gaze roamed up to my tray ceiling. Stepping closer, he said, "That's cool. Did you paint this?" "Yes, I wanted to wake to blue skies every morning, no matter what the weather." He noticed that the majority of the paintings were my watercolors and oils. He examined each one and gave a nod of approval or offered an insightful comment. "You're a talented lady," he said at last. I served lunch at my breakfast nook table because it was cozier than my long dining table. The burgundy tablecloth and fresh flowers in a small vase made the occasion appear to be a bit more romantic. Brent scooped meat and loads of potatoes and carrots onto his plate. He attempted to cut the roast beef, but it fell apart. Forking some into his mouth, he chewed and closed his eyes. This is good." The corners of his mouth tilted up. "It's so moist and tender." He reached for his glass and downed some sweet iced tea before he speared a chunk of potato. A captivated expression filled his face as he savored the flavors. From his positive response, I surmised that I'd passed 2 tests at once. My home passed inspection, and I was a good cook. "Where'd you get your dog?" Brent chugged down half a glass of tea. I rose, pulled the small pitcher of tea from the fridge, and placed it on the table. "A friend of mine is a vet. I asked him what breed of small dog he felt would be best for me. He had a Cocker Spaniel puppy he had bought for a guy who helped him with a flat tire. The man planned for the pup to be a Christmas present for his kids, but died of a heart attack right after Thanksgiving. The wife didn't want the dog, so he asked me if I wanted her. That's an interesting way to acquire a dog. Sad about the guy dying." I dabbed at the corner of my mouth with my burgundy cloth napkin. It was sad, but I took one look at Buffy and I knew she was mine. "She's a beauty, and her fur is so soft," said Brent. He helped himself to seconds of everything while I refreshed his glass of iced tea. I thought, did he eat today? I'd barely touched my meal, and he was on round 2. Brent shoveled in the final bite on his plate and wiped his mouth. I picked up my plate and took it to the sink. Brent followed my example. I stood on my tiptoes and hoisted a Tupperware cake carrier half full of chocolate chip pecan cookies from the top of the fridge. After handing the container to Brent, I grabbed the 2 dessert plates I left on the counter. Back at the table, Brent rested open the lid, and the smell of fresh baked cookies filled the room. A rapt expression spread like soft butter on warm toast across his face. "My favorite," he said. Placing 3 cookies on his plate, he passed the container to me. "Want one?" Choosing a cookie, I continued the story. Buffy's an excellent judge of character. She seems to like you. Brent stuffed the last bite of a cookie into his mouth and swallowed. I like her too. He eyed the container. Gaze shifting to me, he raised a brow. I smiled and handed him the container. I have a friend who bought a pot-bellied pig for a pet, said Brent as he reached for another cookie. It would beg at the table and squeal when you ignored it. Then it would scrape his hoof down your shin. He snatched 2 more cookies. Ouch! I cringed at the thought. I noticed some crumbs stuck around one corner of his mouth. It hurt. That pig scraped my shin once. Sam had to give it away to someone who had a farm. I noticed your dog doesn't beg at the table. I couldn't take my eyes off the crumbs. Reaching down, I brought my napkin up and wiped my mouth as a hint. Brent continued to munch, a contented expression on his face as his eyes glazed over. Perhaps it was a rush of serotonin from the chocolate chips. She's trained not to beg and is never given table scraps. Buffy was snoring under the table, her muzzle resting on my foot. The crumbs taunted me. I couldn't take my eyes off them. I cleared my throat. Brent stopped chewing and focused on my face. I pointed at the corner of my mouth. His eyes widened as revelation appeared to snap in his brain. He wiped the corner of his mouth with his napkin. The wrong one. I pointed to the other side of my mouth. Wiping with enthusiasm, he stopped and raised both brows. You got it. Brent smiled and nodded. Buffy, you're almost as sweet as your mama's cookies. He reached down and stroked her head while he gave me a wink. Brent pushed away from the table, stood and toted the cookies to the kitchen counter. He talked some more while he helped me wash the dishes. We settled on the couch to talk. Buffy slept with her head on one of Brent's knees. Brent passed the 4-legged kid test with flying colors. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the reading. Please like, subscribe, leave comments. Please share so other people can enjoy the book. Have a great day. And if you find this one interesting, you might consider Hot Flash Desires, the second in the series. And I am currently in final edits on Hot Flash Decisions, hopefully to be released this year. Although I have no idea how you launch a book during a pandemic. Have a great day, stay well, and please stay safe.